Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Becoming a Regenerative Farmer webinar. We're excited to have you all here with us this evening. I met Matt at a training called the Rewilding Training, which we have been doing with an ERC called Embercombe in Devon. Matt was one of the students on that training. We got along really well, and we thought, wouldn't it be amazing if we could create a Regen Ag version of this, because the format of the training is really beautiful in terms of how much people learn, how much people bond, and how confident people feel to go out and enact what it is that they've learned as a result of being a part of it. And Henban is a really special place, and we're thrilled to have to put this all together. We think that it's a really incredible training and something that's really needed right now with such a rising interest in this topic. So I'm going to hand it over to Matt, and he can introduce himself and then tell you a little bit more detail about what the training will entail.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ash. Yeah, thanks so much all of you for joining us. I'm going to tell you a little bit about us, a little bit about the training. We're really lucky that tonight we've got some of the other course tutors that have joined us. So we've got Darren Doherty is here with us tonight, and he's I don't know. I'm so pleased we've got Darren with us on the training. I don't know. He's kind of, in a way, to me, he's like one of the kind of fathers of Regen Ag, and he's kind of to regenerative agriculture what Bill Mollison was to permaculture in a way. So that's really good. We've got Silas Hedley with us, who for a long time has been the kind of main farm manager at FII Farms, which was the kind of big research farm, and did a lot with McDonald's, and he's a really good grass and kind of grazier. And then we've also got Lynn Cassels, who I've worked with a few times on different things, who was on Our Farm in Life and has got a really beautiful book about her story of becoming a farmer. And they've got a really beautiful smaller farm up in the Highlands. And then we've also got one of our former students, Alistair, who's going to join us as well. But I'm just going to tell you a little bit about us first. And about why I wanted to do the training in a way. So this is wait, I'm stuck on Zoom. Yeah. So this is us, this is Henbant, and we're a small agroecological regenerative farm between the mountains and the sea up in northwest Wales. We've been here for 12 years, and we kind of really came initially to grow babies and cabbages, I guess. Like that was the initial idea. But you really quickly realize that farming's the most important job in the world, and that actually being able to share food with our neighbors and to be able to produce food in a really good way just seemed so incredibly important to us. And we kind of came to grow babies and cabbages, but we then kind of really quickly came to this question. And that question was, is it possible to buy a small farm on a mortgage, to make it pay its way, to produce really good nutrient-dense food for our community, at the same time to build soil, to build biodiversity, to build social capital, and to really enjoy it? And to me, like, I think some of the ways of looking at Regen Ag have got a little bit kind of like squeezed down into worrying about, soil and water. But to me, I think it's a much more holistic approach. And I think that's the approach that we're going to take with this course. Maybe you could call it a bit more agroecological, but I think that's really kind of like the route that we're going. Because I think if you can do that and enjoy it, then you can make the world a really better place, can't you? And I think that's really important. I want to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. And this seemed like the ultimate answer to me. I guess if there's a big thing, I think, between regenerative and between being sustainable. And if I ask my wife, Jenny, how our relationship is, and she goes, "Oh, it's sustainable." Well, that's a big problem, isn't it? I wanted to live a life where kind of everything gets richer at the same time, really. So where, my farm's health and my bank balance and my relationship, my family and my kids and my neighbors all get stronger all the time. And that's what we're kind of aiming to help you design in this training. So you'll kind of guess from that, maybe. I've not always been a farmer. I was an ecologist, and then I became a filmmaker. And for a long time, I made programs like Planet Earth and Life and Frozen Planet, things like this. And that was amazing. And I got to spend like, I don't know, like, 10 years of my life living in these little ecosystems all over the world. But we got to the end of making Frozen Planet, and Discovery Channel were like, oh, can you just like turn down that little bit about climate change, and can you stop talking about problems quite so much? And that was combined with the fact that I was doing like 10 months a year out of the country. And I just really wanted just to kind of settle down and kind of nest. And so that's when I left the BBC and became a farmer. And quite quickly, really, our farm started to look a little bit a little bit like this. We kind of started getting we had a really good design. We came from a permaculture background, and we started to come up with this really good design of the whole farm system. Um, but that could have easily gone a little bit wrong. But we jumped really strongly into holistic management and holistic decision making to really design the farm that we wanted. And holistic decision making plays a big part in this course. Like it's one thing to go, I want to go and be a farmer, or I want to go and work in this space, but really designing for what you deeply, truly want out of life and running your farm in the same way. So getting what you deeply, truly want out of your farm, I think is absolutely essential to making these things work. So that's a big part of the training, but we'll talk about that again in a second. Yeah, so this is us. So we kind of set out, and we've got on a farm, we've got a range of different enterprises. We're quite a small farm, we're 80 acres. But within that, we've got lots of little things all nested within it. So we've got a 300 hen laying flock that's kind of moved on pasture. It's moved 3 times a week, amongst a big group of agroforestry systems. So the farm's all cut up, but it's really beautiful, quite varied, really different agroforestry systems. And within that, we've also got a beef herd, we've got a cattle herd that move amongst that system as well. And then down at the heart of the farm, in a way, we've got a market garden, and we've got about an acre and a half of no dig market garden. We feed 80 families a week from this. And so actually we basically each week we feed 80 families, most of their beef, well, most of their meat, veg, and eggs. And it's a really beautiful thing to be able to do actually every week. And that's been a really, really fun journey. But on that journey, I was also really interested in this kind of question about how much biodiversity can we put into that system. And this is something that's become really important to me. Like actually, I did the rewilding training last year, and to me, working out how far we can push an ecosystem really for genuine food production and genuine production for human needs, but also for biodiversity at the same time. And that's another kind of core part of the course. I think it's definitely a nuance that comes from me being on the course. And yeah, and I just think it's a really fun game to be able to actually create a thriving ecosystem that you're part of. It's just a beautiful thing to be able to do every day. On top of that, we realized quite quickly that for us that sharing the farm was a really important thing to do. And so we realized that like every night we'd kind of come over the hill, and me and my wife would be like, there'd be a beautiful sunset. But we'd have to go into the house, and we'd have to, there's still like, there's kids that need to be fed, and there's things that need to do. And, there's always life is still there, even in a really well-designed system. So we wanted someone to kind of harvest that sunset and to share the farm with other people. So we've got a small but quite kind of thriving tourism business on the farm as well. And I think one of the ways this training is unique is we're also kind of not shy, I guess, of talking about those other diversification systems that can make your life enjoyable and that can make your farm that just a little bit easier to run. So that's a kind of core part of the syllabus as well. And then what we realized that we can only do so much good within our boundary, like the farm can only produce so much food, and the farm can only host so many people. And so what we realized was really important was to try and create more farmers. One thing that's been really interesting is I think in this space there's like a huge mushroom of interest from people wanting to move into it, but also from landowners and almost every month I get an email from someone saying, oh, I like, I need a farmer. Can you find me a farmer? And there's a massive shortage of supply of people who can put their hands up and go, yeah, actually, I can do that. And so one of our core roles now on the farm is to try and produce as much farmers as possible. One way of doing that the last couple of years is we've been working a lot with Richard Perkins. If you're on this call, I'm sure you know him. And we've been running all of his, well, for a couple of years, he's all his courses and then just his UK courses. And that's been a really lovely experience, really, to kind of, we've created a really good quality teaching space on the farm. The farm's really well designed for this, both in its enterprises and the way it's set up, but also in nice places to feed people and a nice learning environment. And on these trainings, we have a really good time. We're only a mile from the beach. We managed to, I don't know, they kind of like a work hard, play quite hard, but generally work quite hard on the course, on the in-person parts of the training. And we get a lot of really good work done as well. Like people really kind of leave these trainings. I don't know, like it's a lot to go from zero to running a farm. And I think you could probably run a farm for a couple of 100 years and still not really know everything. But we can get you a good way down that learning journey, and we can kind of take out. I quite like to help people to know where the edges are of the knowledge. And I think that's one part that's kind of core to this training. So that's yeah, and out of the training, you end up with, and this is one of the amazing things actually on the other course that I did with ERC that I did, we just build a really strong cohort of people and of friends that you can then kind of take forward on that learning journey with you. And that's like, that group of people that have come through our previous courses, that group of people that have come through the rewilding training with ERC, they're all there to support each other. And and those groups and those conversations, even years after the courses are like really strong, and there's people really moving and doing these things. So I love that element of it. So I was really excited when ecosystem restoration communities came to us and said, look, do you want to run this course with us? And I've really enjoyed working with Ash. I've really enjoyed putting it together. And what we've done is we've built a curriculum that's based on kind of the what we do here, but also based on bringing in all those different kind of experts and all the people that we've really held in massive esteem, or that we've learned from, or other farmers that I've got a massive amount of respect for, have kind of come in with us. And we asked them all, and they all said yes. So we just thought, what an amazing course to have, many of the world's best there to teach you in the online and in some of the in-person sessions, but have a lot of that online content, but also then to come together for, I think there's 12 days over the course that are here at Hemban, where you really get to get your feet and your fingers in the soil and really get to know each other as well. So I'm just going to talk a little bit over the kind of modules and the training. We'll start off, there's a pre-session with me and Ash that just help you kind of understand the course. And then we go into like really what is regeneration? What does it mean to be regenerative? And Richard's going to take that one. And then we've got a good friend of ours, Hannah Thorogood, and she's going to come in and talk a lot about natural patterns. Like really this patterns of abundance module at the start of the course is very much about taking away all the assumptions that maybe you've built up about farming, about ecology, about how these things work, and just giving you like a fresh set of knowledge that just helps you come into a really clean system. So then Mark Shepherd's going to talk about the history of humans and agriculture. Let's go back to, the kind of patterns that have gone on so far, maybe where we've gone wrong, maybe little bits we got right. Like they always say, like Plato ate organic beef and grass-fed vegetables, and then it still didn't really work out then. You've got all these poems that he wrote about the kind of, the denuded, naked, mountains where all the soil's been eroded and things like this. So there's lots to learn going forwards. And then we've got Darren's going to talk about the keyline plan. I think a big part of the course is farm design and understanding that. Darren's going to talk about this in a second, but it's just an absolute sublime way, really, of designing a farm landscape. And then we're going to look at how you actually, what you actually really want and how you finance this. So we're going to go deep into your holistic context. We're going to work out what you actually really want out of it in the first place. Whenever we do consultancy work with people, it's something we always do first. We really kind of help you design what you want. And then we're going to look at We're going to bring in a range of different farmers. They're going to talk about how to find the right land and talk about their journeys doing this. One thing we've done in the course is some of the modules we've brought in like the absolute expert on this, and then some of the modules we brought in like a little set of farmers. So you can see different farm systems and you can see how they're doing this themselves, but they can also guide you through these kind of elements of the farm, really. So then we've got financing your farm. We've got Fergal Smith, who's an amazing Irish farmer. We've got Lynn Cassels on the call tonight. Abel Pearson, who's a lovely farmer down in Pembrokeshire. We've got Ollie Rodica, who's going to talk about alternate models. Like, I'm really, really cautious of moving into a course where there's an assumption that everyone's going to buy their own little farm. Like, I think for many people that maybe it's an old model. And Ollie runs the Ecological Land Cooperative, and he was part of the founding members of Land Workers Alliance. He's a really good person to take us through that. And then we're on our first in-person module. Again, we'll go back into holistic context stuff. There's a lot that's going to go on these in-person ones that we don't really touch in these slides. We're going to do a lot of just like observing and looking at an ecosystem. You know, can you read landscape? Can you read the weeds in your field? That kind of like listening to it and learning to look at things like that really well. We're going to look at, you know, I do a lot of saying, oh, we're building biodiversity and we're building this, but actually that baseline kind of measuring your impact is a really cool thing. We've got Mick Dos Santos joining us for that. And then we do lots of like surveying. There's lots in that first in-person one. And then we're back to the online modules. So we've got Mark Shepherd's going to take us through some of these, really understanding these different, more in a way, this kind of understanding ecological patterns, but starting to become a little bit more applied. And we've got water. We've got Niels Corfield. There's one of the kind of UK's leading teachers, designers in this space. We're lucky enough we've got Nikki Yoxall, who's in charge of research for pasture-fed livestock. I don't know many people that know more about grazing ecology than Nikki. They're just really good set of people. And then again, in person, we're going to look properly at designing that kind of tree layer of the farm in a way. So we've got James Ramskin Gardner, who's he's head of agroforestry for the Forestry Commission. He's not here in an official capacity, but I've never met anybody who's more passionate about covering the UK, at least, in well-designed agroforestry systems. We've got Matt Dunwell, who's run Ragman's Lane, which is a really successful permaculture farm down in Forest of Dean. He's done some amazing things, and he's really, really passionate about compost. And you do a lot of work as well with our own Helen on the farm here, who's been at Hembant for a good few years and leads on the garden. She's amazing. Silas is going to lead us through a lot of the kind of grazing systems and kind of, you know, in practice, like what do they really look like? And then we're going to come back to agri-wilding, that really kind of working out how you balance biodiversity and productivity. And then we come back and we're going to go through Chris Smage. I think has got some just amazing stories and perspectives to give you on just how incredibly important that the small farms are. And actually being an agroecological farmer, like it really kind of is the solution to probably much more than you think. It's a really important role to play. And he's kind of done a lot of explaining and exploring that. We look a lot more at your kind of business models, like starting to really move into that. We've got Nick Renison, who's an amazing farmer with a partner up in Cumbria. And then, yeah, and then working with people. I really wanted to create a training like we're running this year. Well, it's a really good course. We're running Richard's 9-day farm design course. But to me, a lot of the importance of making a small farm work or just regenerative farming full stop really is about the people side. Everything you ever do is about getting the people side right. And so in this, we look with Andrew Donaldson, who's got the most amazing, diversified, successful kind of farm. It's just a farm that's covered in people in Scotland. Ben Falk is a really good one at going, well, wait a minute, like actually, you know, what is resilience and reminding us why we're doing it back in the first place. Lynn Cassels, who we're going to meet, has just done a beautiful job of integrating where she is. And we run a pretty all right team here at Hembant, so I'm going to cover some of that as well. And then the last bit of the course, we're going to come together end of November towards Christmas. We're going to come together and really sit down for 4 days together. I think quite a lot of the course tutors are going to join us, and we're going to sit down together and really work on some projects together. And it'll give us much more space and time to really go back into maybe the bits you've missed or the bits you want a bit more of, as well as kind of really working out where and what you go to next. I think that's probably me talked quite a lot. I hope that gave you an idea of where we're coming from with the training. And I'm just gonna, well, pass back over to Ash, I think, actually.
Thank you, Matt. You did a great job there. Very well done. Now we're going to go and speak to some of the teachers that will be teaching you on the training if you do decide to join us. We're going to start with Darren Doherty. He runs something called the Agrarians platform, and he's going to tell you a bit about himself and why he thinks that this sort of training is really important, as well as what Agrarians is, what the Keyline plan is. Just a little 5-minute intro from you, Darren. Thank you.
No worries. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you. It's tomorrow. Australia has long been the future, and today is no different. So Regenerative started in 2011 officially, and many of the people that you've got on this course are alumni of ours. The first 10-layer Regenerative platform course was actually held at the Cowdrey estate in 2011, and quite a few people who you've got teaching this course have attended that and then done subsequent trainings. Our main training being our 14-week Rex farm planning course. So we've taught, I think now about 250 courses on site around the world, and about 30 online since 2006. The Regenerative platform itself was built out of or as an adaptation of a 1958 keyline scale of permanence, which was developed by the founder of the Australian Keyline Plan, or the Keyline Plan, called P.A. Yeomans, Percival Alfred Yeomans. We adapted that, and as so many people have now done since, look to integrate a whole range of different methodologies, because that is what happens in agriculture anyway. It's often an autodidactic path. It's often a polymathic path where people are involved in a whole range of disciplines, and so it's only natural that when developing a platform as we have, that we would use something like the keyline scale of relative permanence. So the Regenerative platform uses those 8 factors as Yeomans developed, and we turned them into 10 layers, because as planners, or when you're planning, you tend to use layers, not factors so much. When we analyze the keyline scale of permanence, which was climate, landscape, water, farm roads, farm trees, buildings, permanent buildings, fencing, and soils, in that order, we looked at that and went, well, it's not very holistic. Where does holistic management integrate into all of this? And where's the economy element of it, and so on, which obviously this course is looking to cover. So we added on the economy layer and the energy layer as well. And that's proved to be quite a turning point, because for us and many other people, it's been of deep influence in them being able to navigate some of the complexity that doesn't go away, and but at least to try and capture it all in some sort of form and framework. So we've been really pleased and gratified to see how well that's gone for so many people. With regards to this course, what we're looking to do here is a variation on what the Keyline plan is. We felt a little while ago that it was important, because so many people are aware of Keyline as a brand, or as a whole range of different disparate techniques, that we wanted to actually capture that again and sort of captivate it, so that people understood that it's not It's not just using a keyline plough, it's not just building dams or ponds, or it's not just harvesting water. It's a whole bunch of other things. And when done properly, and it actually is it creates a functional whole, and a functional whole that was Matt introduced me as someone akin to Bill Mollison. Well, I was friends with Bill, the late Bill Mollison, and I'm still good friends with David Holmgren. And both of them were very, very heavily influenced by P.A. Yeomans and the Keyline Plan in the development of the permaculture concept. I'm also friends with Alan Savory, and he was very influenced by the work of P.A. Yeomans back in the day. And you've got Mark Shepherd on this program. He was influenced, and I could rattle on many, many other people who, in the lineage of what led them to doing what they do now, a lot of it started with the Keyline Plan, and P.A. Yeoman's influence, particularly when it comes to where things go on a farm landscape. P.A. Yeomans, according to David Holmgren, and I would agree with him in my study, was the first person to design functional, integrated, broadacre agricultural landscapes. And by the time that he died, he'd done many, many projects and written 4 books and many papers and so on. And that was someone who didn't start until he was in his mid-40s. So he was pretty prolific. He also designed a bunch of machinery and was a very, very, well, he was a Renaissance man in the sense of what that could mean in modernity, especially as it applied after World War II, when, as many of you would know, that straight after World War II saw the real rise of scientific industrial agriculture, and that really took off in the 1970s and 80s with economic rationalism and so on. So
Darren,
the
thank you
Keyline
so much.
Plan.
I'm so sorry, but we're going to have to move on because
Okay.
we've got a really full schedule. But I appreciate your explanation, and I hope that it's quite easy for people to find out more about you, right? If they Google Keyline Plan and if
Well,
they
if they
want,
Google Regrarians or Regrarians platform, they'll probably find out more. Thank
yeah.
you. That went
Thank
quickly.
you,
Thank you.
Darren. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to come to Silas. Silas, if you could just give us 2 or 3 minutes of an introduction about yourself so that we have time for questions at the end.
Sure. Hi guys, my name's Silas. So I have a background. My family farms in New Zealand, kind of conventional New Zealand dairy farming. So always kind of grew up understanding and learning how to get maximum production out of grazing cows all year round, and never putting them in sheds. But the whole kind of the chemical side and the fertilizers and all the kind of stuff that we were using in that kind of system never sat right with me. So in my early 20s, I started managing farms here in the UK, and kind of did it, what I knew, big mobs of cows moving through a landscape, and keeping them outside all year, and obviously slashing a huge amount of cost that comes with these more kind of indoor housing intensive systems we see in the UK and other places. So what I found was combining that with this kind of love of biodiversity and nature and not wanting to kind of use synthetic inputs, I started making farmers money, which was a bit of a novelty for them. So kind of doubled down on that. Kind of I've run both commercial systems and smaller scale ones that were direct selling. So much more of a slant in those on high quality meat production with all the marketing, everything that goes with it. And as Matt said at the start, I recently left my most recent employed farm manager's role on FAI Farms in Oxford, which is a research farm. So that 3-year period gave me a great opportunity to really build a huge amount of data and insights into what the adaptive grazing systems, which is what I'll be teaching you guys or kind of working through with you guys, what could they look like, both in the soil health stuff, the biodiversity, the wildlife, our water cycles, a lot of that kind of thing that Darren will touch on, but also like the economics. And we have this conception that you trade one for the other. You can't have productive systems that deliver on wildlife and biodiversity. And actually, we've seen that's not the case. But maybe in your context, it is all about the biodiversity and they're slightly less productive. And it's more about the quality of the product, which is cool because that's exactly the kind of stuff that we'll work through. Within your context, how do we design grazing systems across multiple species of livestock that deliver on your unique goals? And those things will look very different for everybody. So, I think, Matt did a great overview there of some of the benefits you guys would get from this course. And for me, someone who spent a lifetime in farming and 12 years of managing farms for other people, I have gone through a number of training programs similar to this. Obviously not the same. This is quite a unique one, I think, in terms of the breadth and the depth of everything. It's really exciting. But for me, the value in those really came from the cohort that you're with. So you guys will have so much skills and experience to kind of absorb from all of the guys helping deliver the course. But you're going to get so much value from all the people you're going to meet. And it's not just going to be the fun and the friendships. It's actually going to be a network that you'll be able to lean into for the rest of your life. I've never done something like this where I regretted it. So if you're on the fence about whether you think it'll be worth it or, whatever your thoughts might be, I would thoroughly recommend doing it because it won't just be the 6 to 8 months that you go through the process. You'll get the compounding benefits of that thing for the rest of your career, probably.
Thank you, Silas. I totally agree. Yeah, that's really what we've been seeing with other trainings of this design and format, is that people are just blown away by how connected they feel to everyone and how much that means to a beginner, because you don't have to know everything. You have a cohort of people who have a real range of skills and experiences. You're like one unit, one hive mind, and that's really, really epic. Now we're going to go to Lynn Cassels. Hello.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to virtually meet you all, and a big, massive, heartfelt thanks to Matt and Ash for inviting me to be part of this incredible training. And I just want to share a few kind of points, a little bit about me and why I think this is really an incredible opportunity. So my partner and I, Sandra, we run a small farm in the Highlands of Scotland in the Cairngorms National Park. So we've got about 150 acres or 60 hectares. We moved here about 8 years ago, and now we're in a position where we produce some what we describe as 100% pasture and tree leaf fed Highland beef. We produce rare breed pork, we produce pastured eggs, and we produce honey and a small amount of commercial vegetables. We also have an on-site micro butchery. And then we diversify in other ways. So we teach. So I'm very lucky to teach with Matt on Richard Perkins' masterclass. We run our own courses on farming and growing your own food. And we also have a private rental on site. So it's a super kind of interesting multi-stacked enterprise set that we have here. And I guess the point that I want to mention to you is that, when we started out, we had a lot of challenges. And I would say there were kind of 4 main challenges. The first one was the land that we farm on. So we're at 350 meters above sea level on acidic soils in land that by many people has been described as a place where nothing should grow. And yet we run this really abundant, exciting, rejuvenating, regenerative, profitable small farm. But that was the first challenge. The second challenge was our experience. So we arrived here 8 years ago with no experience in farming. So everything that we've learned has been very direct, and it's been very experiential, and it's been very real and very practical. The third challenge that we had was the finance element. So buying the farm was the first challenge, and we had to take on a loan to do that. We then had to overcome that by repaying the loan back and then scrabbling together the money to build it into a business. Because when we moved here, it was based, semi-derelict to describe it at best. And then the fourth challenge that we had to overcome was our community. Now, our community are lovely, but, I'm from Ireland. My partner, Sandra, grew up in Switzerland. We didn't know anybody in the area. So how were we going to get to the point where we were going to run a business and sell to people who we didn't know? And I would say, really, in summary of all of that, how we overcame that was we really learned about connection. So I would say that is the key to success, and really connection in 3 main ways: with yourself, with your land, and then with your community. So that's what I'm going to really focus on in my element of the teaching, is really talking about how you can embed yourself in your community, because basically not only will they support your business, but they're your safety net. They're there to look after you. And that's why I love this training. I think it's absolutely incredible, because not only are you going to learn about these things from teachers like myself, but you're going to build community with one another. And one of the things that is so powerful is to be able to lean on other people who are on similar journeys in similar fields and get support. And those are bonds that will never break. So I am really, really delighted to be a part of this. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I can join you at Henband for one of the series. I don't know if that's going to be possible, but I wish you all the very best of luck. And yeah, thanks for having me again.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lynn. Great to hear about your story, and look forward to learning more as the course takes place. Now we're going to hear from Alistair Mackenzie, who is a Henband alumni, someone who has done some trainings at Henband before and is now working in the Regen Ag space, and is here to share with you what learning at Henband is like and what it meant for his career. Welcome, Alistair.
Great, thanks everyone. I'm so excited for any of you who come off this call and decide to sign up. I have been to 2 trainings at Henband. I was lucky enough to go to the whole farm design with Richard Perkins, and then came back the following year to do the market garden course. And I think, to echo what I've heard from everyone so far, that I think there's the magic of actually being there with all the crew at Henband and the land. It's just beautiful, and you get a real sort of embodied experience of seeing different systems work and the flourishing that can happen. But then for what it's led to for me afterwards, I sort of had the confidence to go off and secure funding to establish an agroforestry project in Shropshire, and one thing led to another, and I also have gone on to get a role with the Real Farming Trust, and that has been about connecting. As Matt said earlier on, there are so many landowners in the UK who are desperate to give land to people who are trying to be more creative and regenerative with it. So that's been a real privilege, and sort of dipping into my networks on that. And yeah, the sort of cohort of people, in fact, just this morning, I got a message from Cami, who has opened up Bridgelands Farm on the Scottish borders. So that was from a workshop that we did 3 years ago. And there's constant banter and backwards and forth on that, and it's the most active group of quite a few courses that I've been on, that it's still very much a living, thriving network that's supporting what's going on. And the food is amazing. So I'll just leave you with that thought too.
Beautiful. Thank you, Alistair. I'm really happy to hear that your career is thriving. That's really lovely. I wanted to add one more thing before we go to questions. So the platform that we'll be using for this training for the online elements is called Circle. And what we're building on Circle is an online hub for the ecosystem restoration Regen Ag movement to come together, to be together, and to connect and to collaborate. So after you're finished with the training, you will be in a space with hundreds and soon thousands, once we roll it out a bit more, people who are all working around the world in ecosystem restoration, Regen Ag, that you can find, collaborate with, meet up with, etc. So after the training, it's not like it's just going to drop off of a cliff. You'll be part of a very beautiful integrated ecosystem of people in your training and beyond, which I think is really great. So over to you. What would you like to ask us? I know there's been some questions in the chat, but is there anyone that wants to ask a question to me or to Matt or to any of the teachers about the training? If you can raise your little yellow Zoom hand, that makes it easier.
While you're having a little look there, I think one thing that maybe we didn't make super clear in what we've just told you all was the kind of like the format and the kind of time into some of the teaching. And so we've kind of designed it's a really, really well designed a kind of efficient way really of making the training as accessible as possible. And so basically what we're going to do is it's essentially like every term, like Monday evening at the same time we come together. There's about an hour, a little bit more maybe of the that kind of talk part of it, and then there's lots of kind of questions that come together with that. And this was a question that was in the chat, and then actually those weekends here, I think there's 12 days of that, but they're like long weekends here at Henban. So you'll come on the Thursday and we'll work right through from there. Yeah, and that's the kind of format. And whilst you're here at Henban, I'm a massive believer in really good food on courses. I just think it's crazy to be talking about making the world a better place through food and then just eat, dodgy food. So all the food you'll get is organic or it's from the farm. You're really well catered for. In the summer, we've got some accommodation on site. Some of you will camp. It's just what we've always been doing. It's always worked really well. And then for the winter one, almost next door to Henban, our nearest beach is this amazing little holiday complex that we're renting for the winter accommodation. So you won't get cold at almost any point.
We've got a question from, is it Johanna? Is that how you say it?
It's Johanna, yeah. Thanks. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for putting this together. I'm in Spain, so I'm just wondering whether this is apt for like a Mediterranean ecosystem.
I think it is. I think so much the course is based on like patterns and principles that I think this is always a thing we have on Richard's courses, like actually people come from all over the world, and I think nearly all of it is just as relevant. There is a tiny bit of the course which is quite UK centric, like some of the looking at maybe some of the funding opportunities, and in Wales it does rain probably more than it does where you are. So some of that, you're in a slightly more brittle environment than we are for the planning the grazing. But no, I think 90% of the course is relevant, and actually it often creates really good conversation to look at ecosystems that are maybe a little bit different as well. So yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Darren's got his hand up.
I was just going to say to you, Johanna, I come from a very dry environment, and as I know a few others do, but one of the things that I find with courses such as this is that while there's only a few courses that are utterly universal, I agree with Matt that the principles that we're talking about here and the patterns and so on, and the broad strategies are applicable anywhere. And what I would say to you and anybody else here is that if you have questions about your particular environment, well, then bring them forward, because then that's what actually helps those of us who are in this teaching group to help you. Because I have more experience in dry lands than I do in whatever the opposite is. Very happy to help. And I've spent a lot of time in Spain, like literally years in Spain and in the Balearics and whatnot. So, yeah.
I think just to follow up on that, these courses are so rich, and because they're so kind of deep and long, and with that pool of people, the point is to get you guys at the end where you have the confidence and new knowledge where you can take what you've learned and apply it in your context, because your context might change. If your neighbor is on the north side facing slope compared to a south, then actually in the same little part of Spain you could apply these things quite differently. So it's just really this confidence and upskilling element, and it's down to you to kind of translate that with the support of everyone else, right?
Indeed. Okay. Can I see who came first? I think we've got a hand up from Nathan. I think Nathan was first. Go for it, Nathan.
Oh, hi. Thank you. Thanks, Ash. Thanks, Matt. My question is the course, the program of work, suitable for? Sorry, I'll just explain a bit of context. So I work for a commercial organisation, but it has strong regenerative aspirations in what it does. Now, on the one hand, I've got a a personal sort of commitment to this stuff, because I'm a permaculture practitioner, and I've got some sort of land that I sort of design in that way. But my question is more around, through my job working for an organisation that has a regenerative aspiration, could what I would potentially learn from this program, help complement sort of a role which isn't perhaps sort of directly being a custodian of land, but more sort of learning skills, insights, understandings that can actually sort of complement, what other organisations are trying to achieve and do in this space.
Yeah, I think a lot so, Nathan, actually. I mean, I think to me, I mean, certainly like a lot of it's just as like in parallels and crossovers anyway. Like a lot of it is based on those kind of principles of regeneration. A lot of it's based on that kind of holistic management, holistic decision making side of stuff, which is super relevant. But I think the biggest point is that, like, to me, the more people work for NGOs, the more people work in commercial things that understand like the genuine power of ecosystems and regen ag or agroecology to work in these spaces. I think that's super important, because I think it's all well and good, like, a team of us farmers going out there and believing in these things, but unless there's a wider kind of circle of decision makers and advisors and bodies around us also understand it, I think it's a really important thing. So I don't know exactly what your context is and quite the details of it, but I suspect it's relevant. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thank you.
Wendy. Oh, I think you're muted.
Hi, everyone. Just a simple question that if I did manage to get on the course, the practical days will be a bit of a challenge to me. I couldn't work doing farm work for hours on end. Would that be accommodated or tolerated in any way?
No, I don't think so, Wendy. I think we need people to do a lot of work. No, it would completely be like
Okay.
the point in being on the farm is, so what we tend to do is Richard's courses are actually quite boot camp like then everybody meets
That's
at 5:59 in the farmyard. He's
I'm
very good
aware.
on those 1-minute twos. But actually no, like your point in being here is to learn about these systems, not to run them, So when you're here, really there's an option to go and do things, and actually to make it fun and purposeful. You're here, we'll throw in as much practical things as possible, but you're definitely not here as a worker, like actually they'll basically, everywhere you go, there'll actually be a little crowd of you, there'll be a group of you, and most things really is a teaching exercise rather than being practical. There is a space for those who really want to. They can meet me in the yard at 5:59 and we'll go and do something before breakfast. But no, it's really not an essential part of it.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? There are some questions that have been asked in the chat as well, just in case they're relevant to you. One person said, is this course suitable for someone who has a farm but wants to become more regenerative, or only for people who have yet to buy land? And I responded saying it's been designed for both. It's been designed for someone who wants to start their own regenerative farm. It doesn't necessitate that you have the money to buy land or that you have your own land, because we're going to talk about how financing the farm is possible, and you don't have to necessarily buy it. There are other ways to access land. Other people during this call have also commented on how many farmers there are out there and land owners there are out there that want to rent it or to work with someone who knows what they're doing in this space. That's a really big opportunity. And also, if you already have your farm and your land and you want to transition or move more towards doing things regeneratively, then yeah, all three of those types of people, as well as if you want to work in the regen ag space but not necessarily on the land itself. I would say that that's all four of those situations are sorts that we had in mind when we put the training together. And yeah, I'm proud of how holistic it is. Emma Newman, hello.
Hiya. I've got two hopefully quite easy questions. I've just had a quick look at the dates, and the June part of the course, which is actually at Henbant, I have to be in Norway. I wouldn't be able to make those. Is there, and I can't move that date. That's a very big work commitment. So is there a way to get around that, or would I just miss out on that module?
So what has happened in the past, because this is obviously a very understandable situation, we won't be able to move the dates, but we will potentially be able to offer you a space on the training the following year for that particular weekend.
Right, okay, great. And the other question I had is about spreading the cost. I work in the creative arts, so I have a feast and famine financial situation, so finding big chunks of money is hard. Is there a way to spread the cost? And if so, when would that start? And when would that finish? Like, what would the window be where I'd have to find the money?
Yeah, we're really flexible with that, really. We do ask for a 10% payment to commit to your place, because because of those in-person places, we can only actually take 45 people onto the training. So we ask for that. But then we just ask that almost by whatever means suits you, you just get the rest. We need full payment 30 days before the course actually starts. And so if you select that kind of pay 10% as a deposit on the course, then basically I'll just send you a message afterwards that says, like, you know, gives you our bank details, and you just have to make sure that you let us know when you do make payment. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
And whilst we're on the topic of payments, we do have a bursary scheme as well. So there are 3 different payment options. There are people who are a little bit more flush, who could pay a higher cost. Then there's the regular price, and then there's the bursary places. The number of bursary places we can offer will be based on how many places we sell. I mean, we expect to sell out, but you never know. As well as how many people select the higher tier payment option. But there is likely to be a handful of bursary places which are quite a lot cheaper, and all of the pricing is on the Henbant page, which has just been posted in the chat. Maybe Kath, you can post it in there again for everyone to see. And if you do want a bursary, then our email addresses are right there on that page as well. So you can write to us and explain. What we would love to hear, if you do want a bursary, is what you're planning to do with the knowledge and experience, because we're really looking to maximise impact from this. Hello, Daniel.
Hello. Really cool. I've got like some timescale things next year I need to figure out, so I'm ready to query whether I could actually do it next year. But I'm moving probably like 40 minutes down the road from the farm.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
We've got like a small amount of land, like a family holding. I'm just wondering, is there any like volunteering opportunities coming up at the farm or anything like that?
Yeah, no, yeah, we do. So we've got, every week there's a little army of people who turn up on Tuesdays. But no, like if you're local and you're doing the training, like to me, a big part of my context, my objective is just to try and help as many people do this as possible. And if you're moving down, you'd be super welcome probably in most of the capacities that suit you to come and get involved and learn extra to what you want. Yeah.
Mega. Thank you.
I wanted to mention as well before we sign off that we have a discount, a 5% discount for people who get in early. The code is just early bird in lowercase, or one word, and that will expire on the 22nd of November. So yeah, feel free to make use of that. We've got 3 more minutes. Anyone else want to say anything, or else we'll say goodnight, go for dinner?
Now, if we're coming towards the end of the call, I I just want to say, like, I don't know. I love what we're doing so much, and so to me, getting more people to do it is so important. We came here, and about halfway through our homebound journey, I was like a little bit scared that we'd put all our eggs into this one regenerative basket, you know. And I thought maybe it's just like this, maybe it's all made up and it's not really true. And actually, it's quite some parts of it are quite hard. And I went on this journey, and I went and visited as many farms as I could that were, well, my context at the time was to visit kind of small farms that were really producing food, were really producing biodiversity and were enjoying it, right? I didn't find loads, but the ones I did find that were really doing this were really working. And I just found I spent years trying to ponder why you have these islands of people who are just winning at life, and then all their neighbors are just doing what they've always done. And I just found it, I still find it a little bit confusing, but I've kind of started thinking about other things. But no, I just wanted to say, like, I'd love you all to join the training, and yeah, and I'm really excited for you all coming on it.
Indeed, it is a very beautiful space to be inhabiting. I feel buoyant and happy and hopeful every day working on this topic, and that is really important during these times we're living in. So let's leave it at that. Good night, everyone. I hope to meet some of you in online in March and in person in May. Ciao.
Thanks all. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
Guy's got his
you.
hand up. Bye all.